Good to go. Good evening, everyone. Could I ask you to please stand for a pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Nice intimate group here this evening. Timothy Curver passes his apologies for not being able to be here. He had a business conflict. We did have an executive session before this meeting to discuss legal affairs and contract negotiations with our solicitor. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I will make that.
Thank you, Sam. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any amendments to the agenda? I'll offer two. One is that we have an audit for our participation in the American Rescue Plan Act, known as ARPA. We got that and we'd like to approve that tonight if possible. It's a formality, but we'd like to approve that. And then secondly, we'd like to pull item 16C, which is to consider the expansion of sidewalk and removal of parking spaces at 110 South Union Street. We'd like to pull that from the agenda and put it to the
Public safety.
committee.
That meets on third Tuesday of the month. So I think that's the 16th.
So are there any objections to those two changes? All those in favor with the revised agenda? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Our first order of business is actually to hear about our audit, our 2025 audit presentation. Kyle?
Sure, I'll turn it over to our auditor.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Speak up just a little bit.
I know. It's usually a problem of mine. Let's get out my presentation. Okay. My name is Tim Mira. I'm with Zellenkowski Axelrod. I'm a partner on the borough's annual engagement, here to speak about the audit results of 2024, including both the financial and the single audit. So high level, we performed our audits in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. For the financial statements, we express an unmodified opinion on the borough's financial statements. What this essentially means is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This year, the borough was required to have a single audit, which means that you guys expended over $750,000 in federal funding. And when you do that, you're required to have a single audit performed. The borough expended over $750,000 of American Rescue Plan, the ARPA funding, which triggered the need for that single audit. We expressed an unmodified opinion on compliance from the major programs. We did identify a control finding as it relates to, I think, procurement, suspension, debarment, but that did not raise to the level of being an issue, but it's documented in the report. And then as part of our audit on the financial side, we're required to review the borough's internal control process. As part of that review, we did not identify any deficiencies, so there was no management letter comment issued as part of our audit there. Some other required communications. Yeah, it's a previous. There you go. Okay, no worries. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There were no disagreements with management. Management representations have been obtained, and no management consultations with other accountants took place to our knowledge, and there were no other audit issues identified. Just some financial results from the 2024 audit of the borough. The governmental activities, which is your essentially the consolidated version of your governmental funds, which is your general fund, capital project fund, emergency management, and non-major funds on the full accrual basis of accounting. They ended the year with a net position of $14.9 million. This is an increase of $4.5 million from the prior year. That $14.9 million is comprised of net investment in capital assets of $8.3 million, restricted net position of $4.8 million, and unrestricted net position of $1.8 million. The unrestricted portion is what the borough has to spend on what they seem fit. And that restricted portion, that $4.8 million, is comprised of $1 million for your pension asset. That is your police pension plan has a pension asset. $2.7 million that's restricted for future projects. 68,000 restricted for road improvements, and 1 million is restricted for community development. The government activities ended the year with total assets and deferred outflows of $31.7 million, which is up from the prior year balance of $24 million. And total liabilities and deferred inflows ended the year at $16.7 million, which is up from 2023's balance of $13.6 million. These figures can be found on pages 29 and 30 of the borough's report in the statement of net position and the statement of activities. Also on those pages are the business type activities. This essentially is the consolidated statement for the borough's water fund, sewer fund, the parking fund, as well as your solid waste fund. The business type activities ended the year with a net position of combined net position of $14.7 million. This is a decrease of $0.2 million from the prior year, so stayed relatively consistent. That 14.7 is comprised of net investment in capital assets of 13.1 and an unrestricted net position of $1.6 million. There were total assets and deferred outflows of $21.1 million, which is slightly down from 2023's balance of 22.3, and ended the year with total liabilities and deferred inflows of $6.4 million, which is slightly down from the balance in the prior year of 7.4. Now on to your governmental funds. I know we talked briefly earlier about the governmental activities. This is just those funds, but on the modified accrual basis of accounting. So it doesn't include your pension, your OPEB, your long-term liabilities, your long-term assets. So the fund balance, the combined fund balance was $6.1 million. This is an increase of $2.4 million from the prior year. So that's a trending in a great direction. That 6.1 is comprised of non-spendable of 0.4, restricted of 3.8, and an unassigned of $2.3 million. Majority of the unassigned is coming from the general fund, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Ended the year with total assets of $7.6 million, which is up from $5.7 million in the prior year, and total liabilities of 1.3, which is slightly down from 1.9 in the prior year. The information for these numbers can be found on pages 31 and 33 of the borough's report. Next on to the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the township. Want to highlight this fund because it has some significance. The fund balance ended the year at $2.4 million. This is an increase of $0.2 million from the prior year. That 2.4 is comprised of non-spendable of 0.1 million, restricted of 0.7, and an unassigned of $1.5 million. So I know last year you guys had asked the question about how much should you guys hold in your unassigned fund balance based on, I guess guidance that's out there. Well, the recommendation is 2 months of operating expenses. So your general fund had roughly $5.2 million of expenses, which equates to $436,000 roughly a month. So 2 months of that is $872,000. You guys are sitting with $1.5 million in your unassigned. So you're running at about 3.5 months, give or take, of reserves, which is well over the 2 months recommended. So just kind of wanted to point that out to you. And it has gone up from the prior year, so you guys are definitely managing things very well. The general fund ended the year with $3.2 million in assets, which is slightly down from 3.8 in the prior year, and total liabilities decreased to 0.8 million from 1.6 in the prior year. Just some additional items to note about the 2024 audit. There were 3 accounting standards that were adopted in the current year, detailed on page 46 and note 1 of the report, GASB 99, 100, and 101. Even though we implemented these standards, it didn't have any impact on the borough's financial statements. Next slide, just some items to note going forward. Just the pending accounting principles. We have, looks like 102 is the only one that will really impact the borough going forward in 2025 with 103 and 104 in 2026. But we'll help, actively work with Nick to ensure compliance with those and make sure that the borough gets the GFOA certificate in that regard. And that's really all I have. I mean, I know that probably wasn't a lot, but it might have seemed like a lot. So,
Thank you very much, Tim. Council, Mayor, comments, questions? Tim, from a control standpoint,
Sure.
Are we managing our finances correctly? Is there anything that causes you any concern in terms of having the right controls of who's has access to what, who's paying what, how things are being signed, et cetera?
No, I think, excuse me, I think that's one of the processes that we're looking at as part of the financial audit, looking at, making sure that the board has, an insight in the procedures of the disbursements. You guys are also seeing what's kind of oversight of operations and whatnot, right? But from our perspective, everything, that Nick has implemented, the team, everything looks good.
Are there any comments or questions from anyone in the audience? Are we approving this for the consent agenda this evening?
That's the request.
Okay. So thank you very much, Tim, for your ongoing help, but also for the presentation tonight. Is there a motion to, or is there any reservation to putting this on the consent agenda for Wednesday's meeting? No? Okay, it'll be on the consent agenda then. Thank you. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. And thanks to Nick and his team. Another, smooth audit this year, and it was great working with you, everybody. All right, thank you. Thanks.
Reports. Kyle, anything to share?
This will probably get said more times, but just a thank you to our team for working the festival this weekend. That's a lot. So it's appreciated.
Andy, anything from a legal perspective?
Just, we have next month, we are hopeful to bring the amended ordinance for the pension pursuant to the union's contract negotiations forward for approval, to have it advertised and then approval subsequent in November.
Thank you. Chief Holsworth?
Good evening. So I did submit a report to you at the end of last week. I don't have anything to add about that. I would echo Kyle's statement that our team across the borough, the police department, the public works, fire and EMS, everybody did a phenomenal job for this weekend and leading up to it with the events of last week as well. So big thank you to Rob and Denise and their team as well.
We know how many estimated visitors we had?
Millions of people visited Kennett Square.
Thank you, Chief. I don't see anyone from Longwood. They did submit a report, which is also online if you have any questions. It's actually very thorough. It's a new format. I think it's very good. Building permits, life safety. Lexi, anything to report on Lexi's behalf, Kyle? She did it. Please go ahead.
So I think we have the same idea in our head. Lexi developed a new report on the building inspection and life safety. Did you guys see that? It's in the reports folder in the pre-read. But it's basically a similar summary to what the fire companies and the police do, just summarizing. And it was shocking to me. Like, I had no idea. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but there were in Q2, they issued 61 building permits and did 295 life safety inspections on apartments or other rentals, which is impressive. So thank you for putting that together, Kyle. Pass our thanks on to Lexi.
It's a very nice, it's just a one pager online. I think it's a really nice report. Maybe we can tweak it over time, but it is really a great effort. The one thing that shocked me, I'm not sure if you have a response, was the number of inspections that fail. It was 30–40%. I was shocked to see that many inspections fail.
These are the life safety inspections.
Yes, yeah, the apartment rental inspections, Airbnb now as well.
Yeah, just candidly, it's a bit surprising. So when we're giving out these failures, we're getting back a lot of comments, well, this has never been cited in the past. And just to be clear, we're not citing anything cosmetic. And to that point, we actually send out with the annual registration sheet a list of everything that we're looking for. So there are meant to be no surprises. It's not cosmetic. It is. So obviously, we hope that number goes down, but it is surprising.
And correct me, but each of them are followed up on. They have a 30-day or 2-week or 30-day period to actually correct those with risk of losing that rental ability if not,
Right.
right? So, yeah, that's great to see. Committee reports, Finance, Joel?
Yes, Finance Committee met on August 21st. We met with Chief McCarthy from Longwood and the Regional Fire and EMS companies to discuss the status of fire and EMS for the current year and next year, kind of just have a candid conversation about what his needs are, what he sees moving forward. We have a 2-year agreement that we started last year, so we're set for next year still, but just to keep in touch and keep on base with him from a financial perspective. The biggest pain that they are facing is capital costs, particularly the replacement of their apparatus. Additionally, he mentioned that last year there were 1,300 total fire and rescue runs, and as of August 21st, they're already at 1,100. I can't remember if that's borough specific or the entire region, but yeah, they're seeing quite a bit of activity. Otherwise, overall finances for the year are still on track and in good shape, and the minutes and bills paid were approved.
Thank you very much. Kathleen, Development?
Yes, so the Planning Commission is working through details for the comprehensive plan that's coming up, and then as well, meeting with NVF developers to work through some minor or major details.
I would say more major than minor.
I was impressed that you are making sure that as details are going through, that it's an overall picture in case they are no longer the developers. There's a lot of safety nets still in place.
Yes.
So thank you. And then Harb will be doing a presentation this evening.
Thank you, Kathleen. Julie, Community Development?
No update this month.
Matt, Public Safety?
Yeah, two things. One is we recommend that that council approve the permit for the Kennett High School parade, homecoming parade that's on the agenda for tonight. So that's recommended to be approved. We spent a significant amount of time talking about traffic and speeding, which really is almost every meeting where we end up talking about the biggest concerns are on, the increase in traffic, speeding, going through stop signs. And what we'd like to do, and we're going to send that as soon as we have numbers, we're going to send a request to the Finance Committee. What we would like to do is have, be able to do a sample or a test run of 1 or 2 intersections where we paint and stripe them differently to draw attention to them. So for example, we've had multiple times complaints about people coming down the hill at Linden on Lincoln, thank you. So coming down the hill on Lincoln, as you approach Linden there, that for folks crossing the street, cars seem to be coming down fast. What we talked about doing was striping the pedestrian crossing there, but then maybe even adding out hash marks further out and coming up with an idea where we could start doing maybe some traffic control just with visuals, doing other things such as raised crosswalks and things like that are incredibly expensive. And we thought this might be a good test run in one specific area to see about doing better marked, better lined crosswalks that are freshly done. So we're going to do a kind of a mock-up. Denise is working on pricing on what it would cost, but overall, I don't think we've done striping for several years. Certainly not many of the crosswalks have been striped. So we're going to ask that Finance Committee would maybe commit for this coming budget up to $10,000 to do a sample, do one place and try some new signage, try some new things going down there. So we'll send that from Public Safety over to Finance to hopefully be included in this coming budget. But we consistently have these requests about speeding and we don't do any, there's just few things we can do that this seems to be really a cost-effective way to follow the traffic control manual, which we're required to do anyway, and then maybe add some additional signage and things like that. So we'll be following up with that, but we'll be sending that before the October meeting to Finance to request some budget money for that. And that is it for Public Safety.
And anything from the Office of the Mayor?
Sure. Just a quick update. I announced last meeting that Vestergaard had gotten approval for their new product, this screening product to use in mushroom houses for fly control. The first shipment of that arrived about 10 days ago, and thankfully, 100% of that entire shipment has already been sold and is out for implementation to the different mushroom farms. And they're doing training seminars. So Vestergaard was here the last week and a half, going out to farms, showing them how to properly install it. And they've already sold out the first round. They will be back October 6th for another 10 days. And at that time, I'm scheduling with some homeowners that we're going to be doing tours of a few homes so that they can take the product and adapt it for residential use. So they want to go out and look at different ways it could be applied residentially to deal with the flies. And then once we have some diagrams and some uses there, their intent is to apply for EPA approval for residential use in November. So little step by step, we're at, this is the first time a new product has been approved in 17 years. So it's it has moved along quite fast in the sense that we've done in 8 months as opposed to the last 17 years. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, it was an incredibly successful mushroom festival, and everybody worked their butts off to make it safe and enjoyable for everybody.
Thanks for your leadership on the fly issue as well, Matt. I'll just pile on and congratulate the Mushroom Festival Committee as well, all those folks, and certainly all the guys. Last night, when it closed up around, 5:30, there were half a dozen public work guys scrambling, and the work they got done so quick was just amazing to get the street back open. It was phenomenal, and certainly to our police and EMS and firemen who were fire people, forgive me, who were there. All right, let's get into the bulk of the agenda. Discussion items. We'll cover first the additional item, which is the audit for the American Rescue Plan Act that was done, the single audit. Is there a motion to, or is there any issues, sorry, with putting this on the consent agenda?
No.
Any discussion, any comment? Any public comment? I know it was only posted on the web this afternoon, but we heard a little bit of the overview from Tim earlier. So if not, we'll have that on the consent agenda. The next item is Historic Architectural Review Board, 418 South Union Street. Andy?
Good evening, one and all. I have an acronym for slow traffic, but I can't use it in public. 418 South Union, this is 2 actual COAs that would be required. One is for the initial demolition of an existing back porch, as typical of the age of house as this one is, early 1900s. They had a back porch, it was eventually enclosed, and now it's fallen apart and they want to remove it and put a new addition on. So that would be the first COA. We recommend that one be issued for the demolition. The second one is for the addition, which will extend the back of the house with new living areas, a small side porch, entrance and windows. The architecture matches that of the original structure. The materials to be used match that, as well as a existing garage. So we felt that it was conforming to the neighborhood. There are quite a few similar structures throughout the historic district. So it's not detrimental to the integrity of the architecture of the historic district.
Council comment, Mr. Mayor? Public comment? Any objection to putting both the demo and the addition permits or authorizing a certificate of appropriateness?
No issue.
It'll be on the consent agenda for Wednesday evening. Next, Kennett High School Homecoming Parade. Matt, you mentioned that earlier?
Yep, it's the same route as it was last year. It'll be on Friday, the 26th of September. They'll be starting the setup at 5:45 and road closure starting at 5:45. It's a fairly quick event. Moves along quickly, but and they've already obtained their PennDOT approval because it's required on 82. Recommend that council approves it.
Thank you very much. Council comment?
It's a fun parade if nobody's ever gone. It's a quickie.
Public comment? Any objection to putting this on the consent agenda?
Nope.
Then it will be there. Consider approval of the 2025 paving bid. Rob?
So this is, it was put out to bid, Longs got the, lowest bid, the only bid actually. But what we did was, we did something a little different. We put it out, as rental of equipment and people. That way we can actually carry it through next year and do the paving, even though, we only put out one bid package. And then it covers all the miscellaneous patching that we do without actually having to designate a specific area.
And Rob, remind us what will be paved,
Hazel will be paved.
as well as patching where we need to throughout the next year. That's great.
That's correct.
Council comment?
Thanks for thinking through how to keep this moving.
You're welcome.
Efficiently.
Yes, that's the word.
Any council objection to putting this on the consent agenda? Thank you, Rob. And the 2026 minimum municipal obligation. Kyle or Nick, would you explain what that is again and let us know?
Nick, could you?
Yes, this is under Act 205 of 1984. That act governs the funding requirements for all municipal pension plans. The law requires that the chief administrative officer of each pension plan informs the governing body of the borough of the plan's expected financial obligation for the coming year. And this is required to be done before the last business day of September. So this is the last meeting that we have scheduled before then, and that's why we're presenting that tonight. This amount of the obligation here, this is the non-uniform plan, will be $331,430 for the 2026 year.
Thank you, Nick. Any objection to putting the 2026 minimum municipal obligation in the amount of $331,430 on the consent agenda? No objection. It will be on. And likewise, similar, but for the police pension program, same exercise. This amount is $130,552. Any objection to putting that on a consent agenda? Thank you. It'll be on the consent agenda. We pulled item 16C. We'll cover that at a future meeting after the Public Safety Committee has seen that. And consider the statement of intent for 600 South Broad Street. Ellie, are you taking that?
Kathleen and I have been working on a project to create a condominium for the property that we're sitting on right now. The way the process works is we create the condominium units and then we will put them up for bid, hopefully later this year. And then we'll receive bids on those and then hopefully have buyers for them, which will raise revenue that we can use to maintain the building and so forth. We all think it would be, everyone on the condo task force thinks it'll be great to have users in the building and make it a lively space again. But I just wanted to, the condo task force wanted to ask the council for their support in this endeavor. So we've sort of drafted a statement and I'll just read it. The Borough Council of Kennett Square affirms its support for the creation of a condominium structure for the property at 600 South Broad Street. Council further supports offering for sale through a public bidding process certain of the condominium units consisting of the first and second floors of the main building, excluding a suite with an office, conference room, and storage room on the first floor, adjacent to the north storewell, and excluding the police station, the annex building, and the carriage house. The council intends to retain ownership of the police station, the suite on the first floor of the main building, and the third floor of the main building, this room. And the outdoor space used for events at the south end of the property, all of which will be defined specifically in the condominium documents. And the borough staff are directed to continue working in coordination with the condo task force, legal counsel, and other professional advisors to further define the units, the common areas, the governance structure, including maintenance of common elements and cost sharing, and to prepare the necessary condominium documents and bidding process, all of which for further council consideration at a future public meeting. So we're not really deciding anything, but I'm just asking council for support in this endeavor. I guess we have a discussion of this, Bob?
Yep, please. Mr. Mayor, council? Kyle, anything you want to add?
No, Councilmember Fight said it well.
I think the fact that we've been trying to rent and lease out, this is the next step since we.
Andy, were you trying to say something? Public comment, please. Could someone, Andy, do you mind handing the mic to John? Thank you very much, Troy. There's a couple folks online we'd like to be considerate of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. John Thomas, 406 South Broad. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I am concerned when you're talking about a condo is say this grocery thing comes about and they fail and they're going to sell it. It depends on what they're going to put in there. They're going to sell it to the highest bidder. And we may not want to be neighbors with those. And like I said, I don't know how you're going to do it, but there's got to be some kind of restriction or right of first refusal or something that will, yeah.
So I'll take that one. The condo agreements will include restrictions on future uses. We haven't figured out the exact language, but it'll be something to the effect of what council has expressed before, that we want the space to be used for community purposes. But still working on the exact language of that. And then there will be right of first refusal for all the condo members, and it'll be mutual. Like if the borough ever decided to leave this space, then vice versa, the other owners could choose to buy that first. So any other issues, feel free to let us know, because we're actively working with the professional staff, the attorneys and the engineers to sort out all those issues. It is a big project to get all those details ironed out.
Charlotte Watson, 523 Magnolia Street in Kennett Square. I think it's like a pipe dream to just say, we're going to figure all this out. That's how we got in all these other messes. We're figuring it out. When we end up, you haven't figured nothing out. We get stuck. I really think you need to have a major builder company, large, I mean, from the area, like Alan Myers, people like that, or somebody they have in their teams. It's past you. You can't devise this. You're here to vote on something that an expert puts out, not you develop. You're not an expert. And in the long run, when resale comes, I see a lot of difficulty out of these contracts that's supposed to be made up, because it has to be a contract. And do we still have the grocery store to slip on this cabbage from? Do we still have the grocery co-op coming in?
No.
No.
Oh, well, you should have told us that. You should have told us that. Okay? Because I thought you didn't have it in here. I thought you didn't, because I see people wanting stuff for free. This building needs to be sold in totality. It is a debt for the citizens. And I don't see how you're going to offset it with a little residential units and individual condos. I don't think you're going to get the money that you're going to need. I don't even know how you feel of want to slice and dice this. I don't know the total amount of units. And darn sure people are paying too much for Kennet, because we never saw a rent sign in Kennet in our lives. And it's not going to be able to sell nothing because you have nothing here. No grocery store, no drugstore, no convenience store, no goods and services. This is no longer a town. Stop rendering us useless.
Are there any other comments? Any other final council or mayor comments?
I have.
Oh, I'm sorry, Troy, forgive me.
Troy Thompson, 612 D Street. I guess, could you take just a second? Because again, I volunteer over at CAX and I know they came in and we gave the potential approval to negotiate. So when you're doing the task force and this stuff goes out to bid, is that meaning organizations like CAX have to bid, or is that?
That is
so-
correct, and we're required by state law to do it that way.
Okay. All right, so that's how that dovetails in. Then who is on the task force? Is that something that we can post out on the borough site?
It's me, Kathleen, and Kyle.
Okay, all right. Okay,
And then there's a whole slew of professional services, an engineer, an HVAC specialist, an attorney who specializes in condos. Am I missing anyone, Kyle?
Yeah, there's the
Real estate
two
broker.
engineers, a real estate broker.
yeah, Kyle, I just think that would be helpful to have kind of like that grid. Here's the reason, who has what specialty and who's on that test.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely share it when this all comes out because they're each going to have a point to share in that discussion.
Yeah, I'm more thinking of just the racy, just who's doing what and who has expertise. Again, it's more for transparency to say, is there any gaps? So again, you guys will get it like 80, 95%. But if other people want to weigh in and say, hey, you haven't considered this or that, it gives people, I think, transparency to say, hey, have you considered this discipline being involved in the discussion?
Oh, yeah. So just the nature of all of this is it all has to come to a public meeting. It all has to be open to that discussion.
Yeah.
It'll all be on the website, right? So there's basically three processes at work, which is a bid, a condoing, and the actual sale. And all of those have to think of them as three stacks of paper. Each of those have to be publicly available, debated here.
Yeah, I'm more talking about the front end of the process when you identify what disciplines need to be involved in all the stuff that comes after it and making sure people know who those people are. Because again, we know who you are, but what's behind the curtain, I think would be helpful for everybody to understand. Well, this law firm's involved, this HVAC company's involved, and so forth.
Yeah, I'll just think about how to present it, but yeah, there's nothing to hide with it.
What is the volume? What, like 20 people involved?
No, it's 6
Okay.
firms, I think.
Yeah, I just think that would be helpful. And then you have that as a start point for anything that comes after it.
Yeah, let's catch up after because I have to think about how we would present that. But
Usually if you
there's
have a
nothing to
project
hide.
plan, you have a project leader, which I'd assume would be council. Then you have who are the key constituents that would be involved in that discussion.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's nothing against sharing it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Counselors, any objection to putting the 600 South Broad Street position statement as Ellie had read on the consent agenda? No objection, it'll be on the consent agenda. Next item is consider the parking garage agreement related to the Genesis building redevelopment. Kyle?
Sure. Do we have that? Thank you. So just as an intro, while we're getting this loaded up, myself, along with Council President Norris, have been in discussions with a potential developer for the two Genesis buildings. The borough's primary input into this process is a parking agreement. So going back, when Genesis was using the buildings, right, they have to secure a certain number of spaces in order for their employees to be able to park and use the buildings. This is a proposed parking agreement with the new buyer of those buildings. So I'll go through, I'll give you the major outlines of the proposed agreement. The request of council is to give authorization to me and legal counsel to actually, formalize a contract and execute that, but obviously in line with the terms that we talk about here. Once we're through it, obviously we're open to discussion on it. So just a quick refresher. It is the 101 and 128 East State Street buildings. The uses for both have retail on the first floor. That's really important for our town vibrancy and the feeling that you're in our uptown. Proposed use is office or medical in the 101 East State Street building. Currently, it's offices. And residential in the remainder of the 128 building. Obviously, we're not dictating what these uses are, but in my opinion, this is a good balance and hopefully makes us stronger long-term to have a good mix of people working and living in these buildings. Of note, it's a projected little over $35 million investment between the buyers and potential fit outs thereafter. The parking spaces, so I basically broke it into what are the spaces and then what are the finances related to those spaces. So for the 101 building, that's currently offices, that would be 249 spaces, 30 designated to help them to bring in really high quality tenants. 158 in year one, these are estimates, 222 in year two, and then getting up to full use in year three. For the 128 building, 153 spaces, 49 designated. This is because they're going to be residential. There is some desire by the developer, a strong desire to have a space where people, when they come home, they're living in these buildings, to have some space to go to at night. Lease up, this is, again, on their ability to complete these projects, but 17 in year one, 119 in year two, and full use in year three. The positive here is that we're all incentivized to get these numbers as quickly as possible. In terms of finances, we have negotiated, obviously it's, for council approval, but the proposed agreement has $900 per space starting in 2026. The current rate is $840. An annual 3% increase, or the market rate, whichever is lower. So for example, if we get 5 years out and we've been raising it 3% and it's up to $950 and we decide to cut it to $850, that same rate would apply to all the users, including these users. If we continue to take it up 3% each year, that would be the rate. Additionally, we have outstanding garage repairs, and the developer has offered to do those repairs for us, and we would then reimburse via parking reductions once they start to lease up the buildings. On the right there, and I'll walk through these since you may have trouble seeing them. The proposed finances, kind of what's the result of all of this? The first 2 years will be tough. This happens whenever large buildings are turned over, and it will be a challenge for us. The positives here, really the main number is about $300,000. That's what our debt payment is annually. So that's the big thing we have to deal with. Historically, the Genesis number was about $300,000. So there was a rough synergy between the two. You'll see here by 28, with that full lease out net of the reimbursement, it's about $350,000. That grows to $472 by the end. Of note, the $300,000 really ends in 2030. There's about, I believe, $70,000 in 2031, and then that's the end of our debt. Now, maybe we end up taking out debt again, but at least on this current debt, that ends there. So, you get through the first couple of years, and then the outlook long-term looks positive. The total there is about it's okay. The total there is about $3.4 million worth of investment into the garage for these spaces. We have the capacity for them. So this is coming with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Kyle. Mr. Mayor, council comment? It's a 9th Street Development Corporation is a very well-regarded local development company. Them spending upwards of $30 million to redevelop what's probably the single biggest issue, at least in my 2 cents, of revitalizing and getting more folks to shop, use our restaurants on State Street, is probably one of the most vital things we can do. They've been incredibly fair in the negotiations back and forth, including the rates that we've set on parking as well. I think it's an important project to support. I think it's a very fair agreement. Public comment. Troy?
You're going for the approval tonight, Kyle?
That's to put it on the consent for Wednesday.
Okay. Few things, lessons learned. You and I have had the discussions about, exempt properties being used for-profit businesses and flipping that to get tax revenue for it. So with this, to what extent, if any, are you using extended leases or perpetual leases that would change the status with Chester County to make that those individuals that are doing the development also are going to be paying property tax?
Yeah, so we have had discussions with Chester County about what is exempt and not exempt, and we don't believe that the garage will tip into that.
So it would stay an exempt property?
Right.
So what is the estimated terms that would be the leases for these?
These are evergreen, so they continue in perpetuity.
So they are considered lifetime leases using their terminology. So, and Chester County said that that would not constitute a change in the exempt status, because I was told something very differently. When you go in perpetual use, it changes, if not in whole, in proportion to what is being dedicated.
So we've had some discussions, not directly on this, so, but we have not gotten that sense.
One at a time.
What was the question?
Just one at a time. Troy, do you have other questions?
Yeah, the other part was we ran into Kennett Square Apartments on the percentage occupancy before it starts triggering us getting revenue. When you said an offset to their cost for the garage based on occupancy and the leases and so forth, you and I talked about making that an auditable process, that they provide redacted leases and so forth, so we know when they start doing it, and it's something that would sustain an audit, as opposed to word of mouth of them saying, hey, we're not at occupancy or whatever. Is that being built into this?
So this is separate of that, but point taken. So that this is a parking only deal.
But it's based on the issuance of a UNO, not whether it's occupied or not. Once the UNO is issued, the parking fee becomes due.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get clarity on, because where you're saying they would have an offset to what they would have as rent if they do the repairs, but it's based on a percentage of them leasing, or is it just them starting leases?
It's them getting a UNO.
Okay.
For each individual unit.
Okay. Okay.
Just 1 second, please.
Yeah.
And that's fair. Use and occupancy permit.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the only other thing I would say is that, well, one last thing. What residual parking is still left after we do all these side dedications and so forth? Is that like 80% capacity, 70%, or?
Yeah, it's about 80.
80?
Yeah.
So that leaves 20% for all the other merchants.
That's right.
And how many is that?
So historically, though, this is in line. So this is calling for 402 spaces. Genesis was at 385. So it's in line historically with what the garage is used for and largely what it was built, the circumstances it was built under.
Okay, so 80% of the 402 is what you're saying is what would be covered on this? Okay.
Yeah. No,
402 is the total number of spaces required.
Required for that. And what is the total capacity?
It's another 20%. It's
500.
Yeah.
Like 500 some? Okay. And so you don't see that impacting the merchants that are on.
Well, obviously it
State Street.
impacts them, right? If the garage is empty
Yeah.
versus 80% full, but, you know, a larger impact on the borough is not having any rental revenue. So we, you know,
Yeah, I'm just getting back to the point where the merchants on State Street, they were concerned about the parking lot by American Legion. They're concerned about the handicap spots being surrendered. And now we're giving up that space. And I just think it would be something just to at least have a conversation with those other merchants that have expressed concern. When the thing happened for, was it LGB Properties, I understood Bove complained about dedicating the borough parking there because it impacted their business. It just, we've got a history of doing
We'll
this.
definitely,
Yeah.
we'll definitely share it, but I just,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, what I've heard from a lot of those business owners is that they want the traffic day to day, that they
Okay.
need people living and working in that building,
Okay.
both
right.
buildings.
Yeah, and a lot of the spaces are gonna be used
Thank you,
for
Troy.
office and also living, so there's gonna be a mix of the parking spaces being used at any given moment, so not all of those are gonna be used at the same time.
Yep. Okay. Who's next?
John, Kathleen, did you have something to say?
Julie covered it.
John? Thank you, Troy.
So you're saying that, yeah, you can write anything in a contract. I mean, if they're going to buy these, they have to have parking, right? They have to have parking. It's not a negotiation, really. This is what they gotta have, or they can't have a UNO. That was our problem before. We're always doing that. We're giving our parking away. We always give our damn parking away. I don't understand it. Now we got, we're the smallest town in the United States. They got 2 full parking garages. That's incredible. Now you got a chance to fill them. And then if you want to sell the rest to the merchant, let them buy 5 or 6 spaces for their employees or their people coming. After a while, have it filled up. What do you care? As long as it's paying for itself and you got to maintain the thing. You got to maintain it every year. Well, don't shake your head because they didn't do it for 10 years. Had $500,000 we had to spend on it. First 10 years, we didn't do anything to it. Thought it was going to last forever. Start breaking apart. So you got to do it every year. You got to put $50,000 away each year for each parking garage. So $100,000 a year.
Just to be clear, I don't want to take your time, but we do that, right? I mean, we did a couple $100,000, not last year, the year before, worth of structural work on the garage. We budget 50,000 the last couple of years into a reserve fund. So we're doing that. We understand that.
All right. Well, you didn't do it. I mean, you guys didn't do it. You weren't here, but they didn't do it for years, and the damn thing almost fell down. I mean, it was bad. So, but just put it to contract. Tell the people you got to put it to contract, or you can't do what you want to do.
And I know we're not generally back and forth. I think you misunderstood something. When Troy was talking about exempt, he wasn't talking about exempting them from parking spaces. He was talking about it being exempt from the tax roll, not that they would have exempt parking spaces.
Oh, I agree.
What in this agreement that Kyle's been working on, 100% of the required spaces by use will be paid for by the building's owners. So there is not going to be any exempt spaces. Troy was speaking specifically about whether if you enter into long-term perpetual leases, does that remove the exempt status from property tax? And then would the borough then subsequently have to pay school taxes or other things? That was his concern. It was not about exempting the user from parking spaces. So I think you just misunderstood the two things that crossed
I
there.
understand that. Just that, I just think they got to put it in the contract. They got to have it.
I don't think it's clear enough what you're talking about to even be presented yet, because to us, it doesn't make sense. We're hearing a lot. We're getting half of it, understanding, and we're not getting it totally. And maybe it's how you're presenting it. But it needs to be presented differently, more academically, so we can understand that 101, and identify what corners that one's on. because I'm at a loss now because I just blank out going through uptown. And 128, it was 128? Okay, that one too. And I do think that it's the little one, I'm gonna call it the little one, is the one that's going to be more professional offices and whatever. And the big one up on Connors Corner, as we call it, State and Union, is going to be the mixed use. No, okay, then I got it backwards. See what I'm saying? Well, explain it to me, please.
So 101 is the clock tower, and that's the corner
Okay.
of State and Union. That is going to have retail on the first floor and offices above, just like it is now. That is required to have parking from our parking garage to operate that way, just like Genesis did. They will be charged more than what Genesis was charged for those parking spaces. So we are matching it to what it cost us to run the garage. 128 is the Franklin Center. That's at
Thank you.
State and Broad.
Mhm.
That's going to have retail on the first floors and then have residential apartments for rent, I believe. So we've got to figure out parking there. We did all that when Genesis built that building back in 2007, and they took over the lot behind the library. They took where the library is now. So there was plenty of parking reserved for that building. Now we just have to worry about where those people park in the evenings, which offsets what's being parked on during the day by the office people. So it's sort of, we've got this all covered. There's some extra parking that might need to happen closer to the buildings for a few people, but this is not going to be the parking debacle that Genesis when they first put in 128. So I think we're good. And we're getting paid for it all. So
That's a little bit clearer. Thank you. I think the Franklin Center, if they're going to have parking spaces, are you doing it so there's an adequate amount?
It's based on the use. So based on how many parking spaces are required for the residential units and the retail use on the first floor, they're not getting a break on the number of spaces. So based on the code requirements, that is how many spaces they have to buy in the parking garage at the $900 per year.
Well, I'm concerned because when we talk about the cost of things in Kennett Square and we talk about the parking, then we're also talking about sometimes it hasn't been adequate. There's a 2 per unit, cars per unit, no matter if it's at whatever, a house or whatever. But the bottom line, I'm concerned about that. And remember, this population is not going to be as transient as you think. Young people can't afford what these people are going to charge. We see that with Magnolia Place. These people don't move around a lot. So therefore, if they get one, if they're old, maybe they don't want to be in a high rise. They can't rescue themselves. But that's probably what you're going to have adults more so. So therefore, the cars are not going to move. You got to think about that. They're not going to move as much. The other thing, thanks Genesis for thanks this new developer for coming in and doing something with those 2 buildings, but we're not going to make nothing here. You're going to get the taxes for the building. Thank God we're going to get that back. But the bottom line is that those people that live in these places, 9 times out of 10, if they're retired, we don't pay taxes like you do. So there goes your 1% tax. Okay, we just don't do it. And it won't be ownership like a condo. So therefore, I think in a way, it's a trade-off. It's not great, but it's going to happen.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to express my support for the agreement.
Just for the record?
Luke Zubrod, 236 South Union Street. I think it's good for the vibrancy of the town that these buildings are being activated again. And I think it's good for the finances of the town that this sort of parking deficit situation that we're in will be remediated. I think the dollar amounts are good. So support the agreement.
Thank you. Any other comment?
Hi, Juan Tafoya, 301 Ray Street. How about when it's the Mushroom Festival or like the Flash? How are you going to deal with that?
Basically the same way we do now, with the exception of 89 total spaces that are designated or reserved.
Okay.
So the rest of them are there.
Okay, Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments? Council, Mayor, any follow-up? Is there any objection to putting this on the consent agenda and allowing our manager and solicitors to finalize this agreement based on the terms set here?
I'm okay to.
It needs to be consent, so it has to be everyone to be on the agenda. Sam, you'd rather it not be?
In case there's.
Okay. We'll put it as an action item on Wednesday. Yep. And consider the approval of the capital improvement plan.
Sure. So Rob or Denise, do you want to just go through? We did go through this last time, but it was an abbreviated, given the time. Just before we get into the details of it, just a disclaimer. This is one of the larger plans we work through each year. The point is to try to keep us on schedule and to break up the debate so that you're not dealing with everything at the budget meeting. This is prioritization, which is why it's really helpful to get feedback from council. This then feeds into our budget with the understanding that no funding is guaranteed or committed until you do that final budget. So maybe just a very high level summary, and then we can get some feedback or approval to put this on.
Yeah, I won't go through everything in detail, but basically, as I kind of explained last time, we break it up into different categories in the projects that we see as the most important in each of those categories. What we've done with it is broken it up by year, how much we estimate it will cost, and how we plan to fund that. Now, this is just a plan. It could change, based on whether we are awarded the grants or not awarded the grants that we will apply for. If council has any questions, we can answer those, but just to.
Council?
To say that we discussed a lot of these items in the infrastructure committee because a lot of them are infrastructure. And it's great to see us putting investment into all of these things, which are kind of vital to our day-to-day lives. I mean, it's the roads and the water and the sewer system, which I think we all agree are pretty fundamental. I mean, that's where the majority of this budget is allocated. And I think we all agree that those things are vital and maybe have been underfunded in the last decade or so.
Oh, what are there's a lot of obviously grants listed as money to get. Like, what are the chances of the grants not? Do you feel confident in all the grant opportunities you have listed?
We've been successful in going after grants. Candidly, it's slowed over the last year because there are about a dozen sources that we generally go for, and we've gotten so many awards that we can't go back into it because we're doing all the projects now. So over the next couple of years, we'll be able to get back into those those competitions. Obviously, you never budget with a grant assumed. But the thinking here is that we want to be able to plan out for next year and the year after. What grants are we going for? And kind of how are we prioritizing things? Because one of the toughest parts for us as a smaller municipality is pulling together the resources to do the initial 10% design work to go for a grant. So that's where you really have to be organized, because you have to go for a county smaller grant to do the initial design to be able to go for the state and federal. And if you don't have your act together, that's where you miss those opportunities. So it's a long way of saying never bet your budget on getting a grant. But we've been successful. I mean, we brought in $8.5 million in the last 4 years. So we have the same team in place. I would expect us to continue to get grants.
Is there a priority? Like, there's a lot on here.
Yes.
And I can see maybe some are wish list and some are hopefully more priority based. So is there an idea of what, like we are hearing water main breaks left and right, here and there. We also know it's Swedish. So is there a point where we throw these into more priority based?
Generally, and this represents a lot of, so as complicated as it looks, that it represents a lot of work by Rob, Denise, Nick, and Joe, right? But basically a good way to look at it is if you go by color, that's the different funds. So we got about 10 of them. If it's funded, that's us telling you that we're prioritizing that. And if it's a grant or if it's grayed out for unfunded, that's saying we think we should do it. We just don't know how to do it quite yet. And obviously, even if they're funded in colors, it doesn't mean necessarily it's going to get budgeted because yes. So part of the problem we have in communicating all the effort we've done over the last few years is we've spent so many time and resources underground. So for the budget process, we're putting together a map to show all of the sewer lines and all the water lines that we've replaced because it's really expensive and you don't get any credit for it because you're tearing up the street, right? So anyway, it's been a lot of that over the last couple of years, and we'll show that in the budget.
Any other council comment? Public comment? Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Yeah, I would tell you, I look at the sewer thing, I just hand this to Kettle Township. Say, hey, you want any sewer? Here, pick from your list. Where it's coming from. You got the hammer and you don't seem to want to use it. If you need $1.5 million, which that adds up to here, all you gotta do is tell them, hey, we don't need this done right now if we don't put any more sewer in. If you want sewer because you need sewer, and get the guy that's building to kick in this stuff. I wouldn't pay a dime of this. I would not pay a dime of this. I'd say, hey, here's the list. If you're doing something in the north, you need State Street sewer replacement, do that. You need improvement and expansion, do that. You need security over, and tell them, do it. Or you don't give them a sewer. They need us. We don't need them. And I keep telling you that and you don't listen. I don't understand it.
It's just not that simple.
It is that simple. It is
It's
that
not
simple.
though.
I did it
That's-
before.
Okay, but maybe it's changed, but it's not that simple.
Why? You say, hey, I need this. Our sewer's at capacity. We don't need any more sewer. If you want sewer for a big development, then you gotta help us repair even the ones in town, the pipes in town. Because it was built, what, 1923? It wasn't built for all that housing. So if you're gonna build, we gotta replace that. If you're gonna replace it, then you get your builder to kick in. $200,000 here, $200,000. You know, I wouldn't even figure on, paying any of it. I figured they're gonna pay for all of it. Every time they ask for sewer. Here, fill this out. And that's what I do, and I'd make it easy. Not that hard. You want sewer?
Thank you. Any other comment? Council? Mayor?
Nothing.
Is there any objection to putting the capital improvement list, which is a very evolving document, on the consent agenda? It'll be on the consent agenda. Consider of the bills paid. Joel?
Yes, as mentioned, we reviewed the bills paid on Finance Committee last month and recommended them for approval.
Any objection to paying the $750,444.50 bills on the consent agenda? It'll be on the consent agenda. And the council meeting minutes from August 4th. Any council or mayor comment? Any objection to putting these on the consent agenda? They'll be on the consent agenda. Public comment. Anyone have another comment you'd like to make? Okay.
Yeah. I was very disturbed about what happened last month in this hall. You guys basically, and you did it legally, I know, but immorally, as far as I'm concerned, you basically did away with zoning. When you crossed over and allowed, you people to add in all the zoning, add buildings, you don't, I mean, I think anybody can contest anything they want to do now. You know what zoning is? Zoning's made to divide a community. It's made to make a community. You don't have a community anymore. You got a neighborhood. That's what we built. We're building a neighborhood now. That's all we are, a neighborhood. We don't have any commercial, very little commercial. We're all a neighborhood. Now you're gonna let the rich people come in, put $60,000 in their garage, make an apartment. It's gonna increase the value of the property. Nobody's gonna be able to afford it. I mean, no, you keep talking about affordable housing. You got the new apartments up there, where they $2,000 to start. You're gonna talk about uptown, they're gonna be what, $3,000 to start, probably? You know, and then I don't know what you're gonna do in MDF, but if you read the papers you had from 2013, they tell you it ought to be mixed use. It ought to be commercial, little store, near the railroad tracks, and then some housing. But, you know, and you control that, because you control the, you know, you don't have to say, well, they're coming in, they want to build all housing. You don't have to let them do that. Again, you guys have power if you use it. And you're not turning people off. You're standing up for your town. Right now, I don't think you guys are standing up for your town. I don't know why. At the last meeting, 80, now not counting Charlotte or me, because you don't listen to us anyway. But 85% of the people here last month questioned you about putting those Airbnbs in. And nobody questioned it up there. They just, and they passed it all. When 85% of your voters that are here, you know, at this meeting, are against something, and your obligation is to come up and ask a lot more questions. You didn't ask enough questions. And so I don't think your zoning even counts anymore. I think people could do whatever the hell they want, and they go to court and they say, hey, look, they're allowing me to put an Airbnb here. I can put this behind my house, as long as I got enough room. I can put this up, that everyone's got, in every zoning. That's not what zoning's about. Zoning is meant to split things up. And,
Thank you. Any other comments?
okay, thank you.
We need to take the people here, because nobody is hammering you. That's why people do hammer you. There's not a mutual respect for a dialogue. I think we could have had a broader announcement, Chief. This is for you. There was car thefts. There was all kind of things that went on here, and somebody lost their life. There's a lot of rumor, who did, how did. People totally confused because nobody got a central message. We needed a central alert. And we need to get it in the newsletter. I was guilty myself of going out on my porch at 1:30 when my horn first went off, and put the lights on. And they must have known it when I turned on the porch light, and scrambling for slippers. So I'm just saying, there was a barrage of car thefts that I call for a small town, a barrage, especially when your car is stripped down to whatever and looks like a little, you know, RC racer, whatever you used to call them things, kids go-kart. Then we lost a life. We need to alert our citizens that this is going on, because uniformly we don't know this. And people had all type of descriptions of what they thought happened, and none of them were accurate. So we need to get a broader way of communicating besides your internet? The bracelets, where were they? Didn't want to mail them to the Watsons? No bracelets for the Mushroom Festival.
They haven't given those out.
Yeah, I got them last year. I got 2. I got 2 last year because nobody used them. I got 2 bracelets. We have had them because I give them away.
In the past.
I had 2 last year.
In the past, they have. We don't do that. That's the Mushroom Festival.
Excuse me, I'm talking to you. I know you don't do it.
Right.
But it's our town. And you keep us from walking on our streets. You keep us from driving through and you inconvenience them into the other neighborhoods. That's what we
$5
go
for the
through.
Mushroom Festival bracelet goes right back to the community in the.
I could care less who your charity is.
That's
My
a Mushroom
charity is
Festival.
at my house. And if we're citizens here, we deserve to have that. I don't, because you're elite enough to afford it, maybe. There's people who can't. And 2 bracelets might have been a help for some household. So we need to get back to it. Because you're showing us you're moving to an elite society. You're showing us. Through and through. The fence, I saw a fence over 4 foot. Corner of Union, I believe, and Mulberry. Is that no longer enforceable? If that's no longer enforceable, so what? Because everything else went at the wayside. I didn't understand when you were talking something about union contract negotiations, but the NVF, you people are moving like everything's all right. You haven't even talked to your public. You went to a meeting.
The public meeting.
Everything happens here from NVF. Let's get it straight. You went to a meeting. The meeting that has to do with our government, where we question NVF, where it comes to our zoning, happens here. And John's correct when he says you rendered our zoning null and void. I've been saying helpless over the years. Now it's null and void with that last vote. You do not have the power and you're operating illegally by doing that. The zoning board is a separate entity, as I've told you over and over, and their job is to protect us. And they don't even trust you to do it. That's why the government set it up that way. You better look in your municipal code. When I even had a Willistown zoning officer I drove around with this weekend.
Excuse me, Charlotte, that was 4 minutes.
I know, because you don't want to do nothing right, but Ellie, you want to keep on doing stuff wrong, and you're an educated woman, I understand. You should be thinking better.
Are there any other, are there
You're
other,
tax exempt on your.
are there any other public comments?
You're not tax exempt on that building because you're not a charitable organization.
Are there any other public comments?
Yeah. 2 things. First thing is, how we prioritize the streets getting repaved? Is there a
A little bit of-
criteria?
Or Rob can as well. So you want me to start, Rob?
Go ahead.
So I just learned about this at the infrastructure meetings over the last year. So we do a computerized survey of the quality of the roads, and then Rob, a company does that for the borough, and then Rob brings that map that has assessed the quality of the roads to the infrastructure committee meeting. Plus Denise and Rob will go actually physically inspect the roads that seem the worst
Okay.
on that inspection. I mean, they're driving around town all the time, but they'll tell you.
Does that take into consideration the volume on those roads? Because if there's 1 pothole and there's 6 cars that use it, that might not. be wise.
So then it comes to the infrastructure committee, and those are public meetings. You can come to those if you like.
Yep.
And it's not just me and Bob, but also Patrick and Nick.
Yep.
And we kind of prioritize
Okay.
those. So I think it's a pretty robust process, both with the input from Public Works, but then public input on.
So when you look at the repaving, are you taking consideration when you're going to do pipe replacement for water and sewer that you're not?
Definitely. Rob is thinking about that all the time.
Just want to make sure.
He does not want to dig up a road that we just paved.
I've seen it happen in our adjacent communities, so that's the reason I bring that up. The other one that I really want to bring up, and this is a very strong concern of mine, as well as people in Magnolia Place. We are attending the planning meeting for NVF. They don't allot any time for us to speak. And the last meeting, if there wasn't somebody else on the committee telling the chair, hey, you allowed no public comment. And I've been to 2 of the planning meetings back to back. We met with the developer for over an hour on site. Prior to that planning meeting, we were not able to disclose anything that we had in discussions with the developer. That is a major problem, as well as the time slot that people want to participate, they can't. And so that is creating an artificial barrier for us to have public comment into the planning committee. And I've been told many times by the chair, Troy, you can't discuss it here. It's discussed at planning. Well, that's 2 months running. I haven't been able to make a comment because I think what they said is we'll give you 4 minutes, 2 minutes each. I gave it to the other woman, the other person from Magnolia, but that's a big miss. And I'm told, well, we got other meetings behind it. That's not my problem. So that needs
These
to
are
be
the-
addressed.
Pardon me, these are the planning commission meetings?
Yes.
The planning commission meeting starts at 5:30. The HARB, which if there's a HARB meeting, starts at 6:30. So they go back to back.
The whole
and it
conversation
doesn't
is
give-
the attorney with the developer and maybe some of the people on the committee. That's it. There is no public discussion taking place in those. And that's a miss.
It sounds like maybe we should extend the timing of those meetings.
We can discuss a schedule change or something to accommodate
Yeah.
more time.
Yeah, just so that it has the open end, because again,
Yeah.
they had, I think, 3 people from the developer meeting with a community of about 15, 20 people from Magnolia Place going over stuff. And, you talk about the safety issue. We sat there by that stop sign and we said, watch this, cars just blowing through the stop sign. So again, that's another problem area. So that's some of the discussion points we're having, but that 3-way stop, nobody stops at it. So
Gotcha.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other public comment? Any comments, Mr. Manager?
Just a plug for the presentation. A plug for the presentation on Wednesday. It's the kickoff of our comprehensive plan. Our consultant will be here. It should be a really good discussion.
Okay. Mayor? Council? Chief?
Just one quick reminder, in about a little over 2 weeks from now, we're having our National Night Out event here in the parking lot of 600 South Broad. Thursday, 9/25 from 6 to 8. We have an incredible amount of our local community supporters are going to be partnering with us. A lot of activities for families. Please spread the word. Come on out. It'll be a great evening and a good opportunity to meet your neighbors that maybe you haven't had contact with.
September 25th from 6 to 8 here.
Right here in the parking lot.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Thanks for coming out tonight. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
And I'm planning.
Yeah. Well,